Hi there, Brendan Dooley, Retirement Income Planner. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about spooky things that might come to haunt your retirement income portfolio. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the bones that I have to pick with widely appreciated 4% rule. I have 4 bones that I want to pick with the 4% rule that I think you need to be aware of if you're considering the 4% rule for your own retirement. Before we get into that, I want to introduce the 4% rule at a very high level. So the 4% rule was meant to help prospective retirees think about how much money they can take from their portfolios without running out of money. It said that you could take 4% of your initial portfolio's value every year adjusted for inflation for 30 years and you wouldn't run out of money. We'll describe some of the nuance that's baked into the 4% rule and why it may not be the best approach for you. Let's get right into it. The first bone that I have to pick with the 4% rule is that it's just entirely too rigid. Your life is nothing like a hypothetical person on paper in a textbook. The 4% rule doesn't capture the changing expenses and income in retirement. So suppose that you were 65 years old, you were going to start taking portfolio withdrawals at the beginning of your retirement. Well, if you've done your research or you work with your financial planner, you might have found that it made a lot of sense for you to delay taking Social Security until 70. And if that's the right fit for you, great. But the 4% rule wouldn't change the withdrawal that you were supposed to take once Social Security kicks in at 70 after you've already been taking portfolio withdrawals for 5 years at that point. You should really have an income plan that is smoothing the income that you are going to receive over your lifetime and more importantly, the tax bill associated with that so that we can manage your effective tax rate for the rest of your life and reduce your lifetime tax bill. Not only does it ignore amount and sources of income that may change throughout your retirement, but it also ignores how expenses tend to change in retirement. So you may already be familiar with the 3 different phases of retirement and spending that occurs in those phases. Up first, we traditionally have go-go years. Now, the go-go years are essentially when you're just retired. You have your health, you have all this money that you've saved for decades, and the enthusiasm that comes from delayed gratification for decades. So you're off doing things, you're taking trips, you're having fun that a 40-hour-a-week gig kind of got in the way of, which is what you're supposed to do. You should be enjoying your money. As we get into our maybe late 70s, early 80s, the pace of that kind of lifestyle tends to slow down a little bit. And because of that, our spending changes a little bit. The discretionary spending that we were doing earlier in our retirement comes down a little bit. Finally, when we get into the later stages of our retirement, so that would be the go-go years first, then the slow-go years in that mid-70s, late 80s. Once we get past the late 80s, we get into the no-go years where your health is now preventing you from doing much traveling at all, and the discretionary share of your expenses has dropped. And it may have been replaced or even outpaced by the share of your spending that we're doing on healthcare now. Your expenses are going to change, and you should have a dynamic withdrawal strategy that is going to capture the nature of your expenses as your life unfolds. Second bone that I have to pick is that it totally ignores the biggest risk that people have going into and just after they retire, which is called the sequence of return risk. The 4% rule recommends a withdrawal amount that is static save for the inflation adjustments every year. Let me give you an example of how this might not be a great fit for you. Suppose that you started your retirement with $2 million and you took your first withdrawal, $80,000. 4% of $2 million would be $80,000. Let's say the next year that you were going to take your withdrawal, but the market has really had a bad year and now your portfolio has dropped down to $1.6 million. If you're going to take your $80,000 withdrawal plus an inflation adjustment, your portfolio is getting awfully close to being worth $1.5 million at that point. Almost 25% of your portfolio would be gone. And here you are thinking about taking another $80,000+ out of it next year. Those withdrawals that you're going to take blindly at that point, after the market has already reduced your portfolio, will only make it that much harder for your portfolio to recover because there's less capital in the portfolio for the positive returns that might come along with a recovery to lift the portfolio's principal value back up. That kind of blind approach to portfolio withdrawals isn't something that you probably will feel very comfortable with for very long. It is better to have a dynamic approach to income and withdrawals that will allow you to hit the pause button or at least pull back on the withdrawals. Now, on the flip side, there should be mechanisms that allow for greater withdrawals beyond the rate of inflation if your portfolio does well. The next bone that I have to pick is that the 4% rule is based on worst case scenarios. So what this means is you will probably die rich. Allow me for a moment to explain why this is a problem. The 4% rule is meant to prevent you from running out of money. It is a conservative withdrawal rate that is meant to make sure that you don't run out of money. What that really means is that there should be money left over. If you're not going to retire into the worst case market scenario, that means you might have a lot of money left over. What this translates to is an under enjoyment, under having fun, and somebody else is ultimately going to enjoy your money. You're going to leave the money. It's either going to go to the IRS, to charity, or the money will be shared amongst those parties. So I say, why shouldn't you enjoy it? So the 4% rule is probably going to be too conservative for most people, even the most nervous of you out there. Next up, you ever heard of GIGO? Garbage in, garbage out. And what that means is that if you have inputs that are bad or suspect going into a model, you can't really trust the outputs. You should understand what's behind the scenes of the 4% rule that might not make it a great fit for you. First up, it was only based on a 30-year time horizon or retirement. With the advances of medicine and technology are enjoying longer lifespans. And what that means is you may need more money and your lifespan might be longer than 30 years. So the 4% rule may not be appropriate for you. Next up is the portfolio that was used to develop the 4% rule to begin with was only ever based on intermediate term treasury bonds and US large cap stocks. Now, I don't know anybody that is exclusively invested in those two asset classes, but I bet you're not. And that leads me to my next small bones to pick about the 4% rule. And that's that it ignores the effect of taxes and fees on your retirement and the income that you will need to pay for your retirement. We all have tax obligations. And unless your portfolio is exclusively made up of individual stocks and bonds, then you have investment fees too. And they should be accounted for somewhere. The 4% rule is not a realistic investment portfolio, may not be a realistic time horizon, and it totally ignores one of your biggest expenses in retirement in taxes. It is better to have a retirement income plan that reflects your goals, health, longevity, investment portfolio, and tax situation. And oh, by the way, if you're already on the doorstep of retirement, that means that if your parents are, God willing, still alive, they may be coming up to or already past their own life expectancies. And what that means is your tax situation today is not entirely your own. If there's any money that's left to you, especially if it's in a retirement account, that will influence your tax situation in the future. With the changes to the way that money in retirement accounts get distributed and taxed, the tax bill you're expecting based on your own retirement assets today may change significantly if and when you receive an inheritance. 4% rule is really just an academic exercise rather than something that you might want to seriously apply to your own retirement. I do have 2 additional videos for retirement income approaches that you may want to check out. I have great news for you. In this video's description, there will be a link to a free retirement income style assessment that will help you figure out, is a withdrawal approach like the 4% rule, if not the 4% rule, is that right for me? So you'll know by the time you take that assessment what kind of retirement income style would work best for you. I'll be happy to review the results of that with you. If this video was helpful, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and as always, leave a comment. I look forward to replying to everybody's thoughts and comments and hopefully helping you learn more as you navigate your own retirement. My name is Brendan Dooley. I'm a retirement income planner, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video on spooky retirement advice. Take care.